Welcome to the Kaleidoscope of Possibilities, Alternative Perspectives on Mental Health. My name is Dr. Adriana Popescu. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and leader in the field of mental health, energy psychology, addiction, trauma, and empowerment. In this podcast, we will be exploring mental health from a variety of perspectives, from the spiritual to the shamanic and beyond. What if mental illness isn't everything we think it is? What if everything we see as a pathology is actually a possibility? What else is possible with mental health?
Hi, everyone. Dr. Adriana Popescu with you today with another episode of Kaleidoscope of Possibilities, Alternative Perspectives on Mental Health. I'm really excited to have with me as my guest today, Sharon Laflamme. She is a facilitator and founder of Creating Serenity Now. She has taken her life's passions of human behavior, health, nutrition, yoga, meditation, and incorporated them into creating an internal space for healing. Healing herself and others has been a lifelong passion. Her journey through childhood trauma created a need to heal, and as an empath, that meant everyone she was in contact with. She became a certified Somatic Experiencing Practitioner, where she helps transform pain into peace, where trauma symptoms resolve and clients feel integrated and whole. Vitality is restored, clients finally feel at home in their body. She works with people with childhood trauma, resolving the many health issues that present due to the nervous system's dysregulation. She's a seeker of knowledge and evolution, a certified Kripalu yoga teacher with an associate's degree in chemical dependency. She has created a number of online courses, including Making Friends with Forgiveness, The Art of Letting Go. She's a member of the Polyvagal Institute, the Ayurvedic Functional Medicine Advocate, a summit presenter, YouTube creator, podcast guest speaker, and she's on the board of Lovemakers Foundation. Woo! Welcome, Sharon.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for the invitation to be here with you, Dr. Adriana. It is simply a pleasure.
Thank you. Wookie will be moderating today. This is my little kitty, for those who don't know. So I always like to start the show off by asking our guests to share a little bit about themselves and their journey. What was it that got you doing this work that you're doing today?
Well, of course, it was my growing up in a home of dysfunction and alcoholism and trauma. And I always knew it was them. I didn't think it was me. And early on, my self-discovery, I just dove into self-help books in the 70s and things because I just knew that my health problems, and I was such an ill child, so ill. I had ulcers in first grade, and they had me on tranquilizers my entire life. And instead of treating the problem, which was the home that this child isn't safe in with these two people, they just, medicated and whatever did to me. And I always knew just the way it was that they're really sick people. And fighting and arguing didn't help with that. But then I knew I could move out and I could change my life. I could be healthy. And guess what? I was, and I am, because at the root cause of my health problems growing up was this nervous system that was in a survival state, always never being able to calm down and regulate. And I've always known that intuitively. And anytime if I went to a mental health provider or something, they would tell me, oh, your feelings are based on your thoughts. And I would always go like, no, my body tells me if this person's angry with me before my head does. And I always knew the innate intelligence of my neuroceptive capacities, and I trusted them over anything else. But I didn't know the language then. I just knew that I wasn't hearing truth out in the world. And I knew that the world was getting more and more sick, especially mentally, because we're more and more dysregulated. We're never in a safe place. And I just I want the world to be healed, and I want the toxic culture to go away. And I've worked on myself with, Reikis and EMDR and, my yoga and meditation, and all the modalities that I've learned and trained in were really to help me. But now I can help others.
Fantastic. You mentioned something I want, and we've talked about this on the show before, but I always think it's great, especially for new audiences, to really explain a little bit more about what you're talking about in terms of polyvagal theory, neuroception.
Mhm.
What exactly happens, let's say, for a little kid? Like growing up in a chaotic home where there maybe is, alcoholism or addiction or mental health issues or just fighting a lot or whatever it is, like what happens to that child's body and psyche, like growing up in an environment like that?
Wonderful question. So our brain learns to wire based on what we do, right? So when we were trying to write in school or type or drive a car or run a race, we knew we had to do things over and over and over, and that built the pathways so then we can do it unconsciously. The body just has that muscle memory and it knows how to do it. So this little nervous system that we grow up in has no capacity, which is the ventral vagal nervous system. We don't have it when we're born. It has no capacity to calm itself. So when you're crying or screaming or you're hungry or whatever you are, you need a caregiver's nervous system to calm you. And so therefore, many of us, based on our societal, parental, and religious mores, we don't get our basic needs met. So that nervous system doesn't know how to calm, to be rested. It knew how to rest and be asleep. That's a dorsal. And it knew how to be activated, and that's sympathetic. But it didn't know how to be in a socially engaged. My nervous system will automatically rise up if I'm hungry, come back down when I'm satisfied. It needs to be taught, meaning it needs to experience it to build the pathway. So if your pathway was constant agitation, upset, walking on eggshells, I'm not getting my needs met, you build the pathway really good. So that's why so many of us are so great. And I call it the pedal to the floor. We can be okay, but then we're like, boom, pedal to the floor, anxious, stressed, ready to fight, because that's our nervous system learned that. Our body learned that. So our body has 80% capacity in the neurons from our organs, diaphragm, stomach, heart, everything. 80% of the messages are the body telling the brain, how am I feeling? So, that stomach butterflies, the body's saying, I'm not quite safe here, right? And those are just little signals. What if I feel nauseous? What if I'm sweating? What if my heart rate's through the roof? What if my breathing shallow? What if my body's clenched and ready to fight? I'm in survival. My body is telling my brain. And then your brain mentally says, we're not safe. Oh my gosh. And we're in an anxious state, prepared to fight. So we have this innate intelligence in our body. Interoception means we can feel ourselves. And I'd like to invite each and every one of you listening to just pause for a moment. Maybe close your eyes, drop inside. And this might not be familiar to some of you, but what am I feeling inside? What is my body doing? What is my breath doing? What's my heart rate doing? What's the level of tension in my body, temperature in my body? What do I notice? And the body will tell you if you're listening. So I'm going to invite you to know that your body's always sending you messages of how safe you are. Am I safe? Am I utterly relaxed? Am I the 2-year-old flopped over on its mother's shoulder, totally at rest, do not have to show up? I'm in full trust and relaxation? Or am I ready to fight the world? And depending on your experiences, you have built a pathway built on how you grew up. And the neuroceptive part, that all those organs deciding without your permission, we orient without knowing it. Your body's always looking for danger, is always preparing. Just why you have a reflex. You didn't see it coming, but your body did, because your body's always keeping you safe, and it will react without your mind. You don't need your mind for your body to react. And that's the neuroceptive capacity, which is how, when we start connecting to the body and we start building that ventral vagal, we become very powerful and very conscious about how we can relax. We train the body to relax, but we also have this information that comes in that if we pay attention to, it's like that sixth sense. We know what's going on. We can sense, well, most of us can sense when you go into a room if there's fighting or arguing or whatever, but it doesn't even have to be deeply intensive for us to sense. And we start building that neuroceptive capacity, the interoceptive capacity, which is the polyvagal theory. Stephen Porges' theory is that your body, autonomic nervous system, which is the peripheral nerves that come out from your organs, always sensing, feeling, seeing, hearing, smelling. If you smell some vanilla, you get a sense, right? Your body responds to that because it doesn't need the brain to do it. And so in polyvagal, the theory is that your autonomic nervous system has been running the show, has been telling your body what to do and what to think and how to feel. And that when we have that concept and knowing and understanding, it just changed the world of mental health. As you well know, Dr. Adriana, it was like such a shift, because we thought we had to change our thoughts to change our world, but we really have to change our body, because the trauma that we go through, or which is really just the body wasn't able to process an emotion. It got stuck in there, and depending on the intensity of it, can create bodily sensations, can create super stress and anxiety, and it takes us over, because every system in our body changes when we're not in a parasympathetic state, which is relaxed, calm, connected, vital energy arise, because we're not pushing everything away and trying to survive. And when we're trying to survive, our heart rate quickens to pump fuel to our organs and fists so we can fight or run. And our blood pressure raises so we are able to fight. And our breathing gets fast, and our eyes narrow, and our circulation pumps a lot, and our endocrine system pushes out adrenaline and cortisol, not the happy hormones. And it's preparing us to fight. And our stomach shuts down because it's not time to nourish and feed. It's time to fight. And our bowels, we might have diarrhea or constipation because our digestive system is responding to a fight. My reptilian brain is saying, we need to fight, evacuate that colon, we got to move. And every single system in our body, our reproductive says, it's not time to have a baby, it's time to fight. And so it is always telling us neuroceptively what we need to know when we connect and start paying attention and build the pathways that we connect to our body instead of just our thoughts.
Yeah, I think that's so important for people to understand for so many reasons, because there's this sort of prevailing myth out there that, by controlling your mind, you can control your body, or that, like when it comes to something like trauma, we'll just get over it. It's in the past. Like, people, I think, just have not understood until very recently how things like trauma live in your body, how they start to dysregulate your nervous system. Because if you keep activating, like for the, probably for yourself, and I know this was true for me, growing up in a home where there's constant chaos and stressful, scary things happening, your this mechanism, this fight, flight, freeze, survival mechanism, gets tripped over and over and over again. And then at some point, your amygdala kind of loses the ability. That's the emotional center of your brain that orchestrates all this. It kind of loses the ability to be able to differentiate between what's a true life or death kind of threat and what isn't. And so now you have people in our modern day culture running around having a panic attacks about I'm running late for something, or I have to get up in front of a group of people and talk, or whatever it is, these situations that really aren't potentially life threatening, but we can never, we stay in this constant stressed out state, and we're not able to calm ourselves down. And that was even true of my traumatized cat, like, we really, in the beginning, when I first got him, like, had to work with his dysregulated nervous system because
Mhm.
of the traumas he had been through being homeless.
I
And
I love that.
yeah,
Well, and I try to tell my clients, like, we that are traumatized because, like you said, we grew up being in this not safe place. And so I'd like to also share, so our brain learned rigidity and chaos, as you were saying. But if we had access to both balanced brains, we would have learned flexibility, adaptability, coherence, energized, and an ability to be energized, and stability. But our brains learn this, and the hippocampus didn't get to put it in right. So the trauma is like, it just happened yesterday. And people are like, yeah, like, get over it. But no, the body stores it as if it just happened yesterday to remind you we can't let this happen again. But I tell my clients, this isn't our fault. We didn't have a ventral vagal built. So we got what we got. And we learned, my nervous system learned what it learned. So don't be mad at yourself because willpower is not working, and you're still having these reactions because you now have a default network that says, ready, fight, any minute, I'm ready. But we can start to shift and change it, right? And we do by practicing and teaching. But the feral, I say we have the feral cat. Don't come near me, don't touch me, you're not safe. And you have to build that trust with the people before you're the cat that can roll on its back and let you pat the belly, because that whole nervous system is always going to say, feral, stay away, don't bother me. Connection is scary, I'm too vulnerable, and I can't go there.
yeah. And that is all designed to protect us and keep us safe, keep us alive. And really, the cognitive mind has very little to do with it. I often talk to clients about, like, your brain essentially in those moments of having a fight, flight, or freeze response, which we should talk a little bit about as well. Um, that your brain is essentially hijacked. Like, you don't have conscious control. It's all that neuroception you talked about is happening in like a nanosecond. You don't have time to think, is that thing safe or not? Like, by the time you've thought about it and analyzed it, you're dead. Right.
Yeah, yeah, and like you said with the polyvagal, you've got an autonomic nervous system. It's got parasympathetic, rest, digest, relax. People know it as. You've got sympathetic. Let's mobilize. Let's be ready. Are we just ready to come to work, or are we ready to fight? Most of us learn fight, really high energy. And then there's the freeze state or the fawn state. That's now new. But this is Stephen Porges's polyvagal theory, that this autonomic nervous system has these states, and your body's going to go into them without your consent. It doesn't ask your brain. It has determined your amount of safety by the signals it's sensing, the conditions you're putting it in, which is why we have to be so gentle and kind with ourselves and keep with safe people and put yourself in places where you can relax, and limit the places that you don't feel safe or aren't with people that you don't know. Especially when you're building your ventral vagal, you want to be real careful about what your body experiences so you can build the places in your body that feel safe and can relax.
It's so important. Can you talk a little bit about the role that co-regulation plays with all of this?
Okay, sure. So co-regulation is basically, we are energy and we are electromagnetic beings. And our heart space is the most electromagnetic. Its field can go out 6+ feet, heart math says. I think it can go out even more. But because of that energy, which is why when we're little babies, the co regulator is the person you spend the most time with. because their nervous system is what that little baby's nervous system learns. So like a 2-year-old's in a stroller and a firework goes off and they jump, and if mom's like screaming upset and all, baby's going to be upset. But if mom's like, oh, that was interesting, and it's okay, and she's calm, that baby's co-regulating. Her nervous system is telling that baby's nervous system how to feel and how to go. And that's what builds the ventral vagal. So that's why generational trauma is so big, because each generation, if it hasn't learned self-regulation and have a healthy, matured ventral vagal nervous system, it only has a wired nervous system that it gets from its caregiver. And that's what co-regulation about. And it starts in utero. If mom's endocrine system is pumping out cortisol and vasopressin and adrenaline because she's always wired, guess what that baby's nervous system is learning as it's maturing?
Yeah. Well, and I think then the important piece also for co-regulation is when you're trying to heal from trauma or whatever it is, you really need to be around people who can have a calm nervous system, like like a therapist or healer, right? Like we need to constantly be managing our own energy, our own nervous systems, because it can certainly, especially if we have our own stuff, right, that could get easily triggered by listening to somebody else's experience of trauma, especially if we can relate to it and resonate with it. So it's so critical for us practitioners to understand polyvagal theory and co-regulation, and to be in sessions engaging in practices that allow us to stay calm so that our clients can feel safe with us.
And your point exactly. I mean, co-regulation happens all the time. It's not just in childhood, but that is your major co-regulator that teaches your nervous system how to be. But yes, we co-regulate with our family. My husband sees me and goes, "You need a hug." Yeah, I need a hug. And he's got a great nervous system. And like, we can't be effective doctors and practitioners because our clients need to know we're safe people. So we have to be in that grounded, centered state and parasympathetic so they feel safe, because wherever we are, we're going to take on that energy and feel it, which is why it's so important to keep yourself in good energy and around safe people. And you might not even know what a safe person is yet because you have no idea what that feels like, but you can learn it. And that's the wonderful thing. We innately are wired to attach safely, wired to want to have secure attachment with people, and our body can do it once we start building those pathways to have it happen.
Now, this also can become, this whole process, I think, can become more complex when you are somebody who's highly sensitive or empathic, as we, learned about you in your bio. I think many of us who do this type of work have a similar disposition. Can you talk a little bit about that? What does it mean to be an empath, and how does that factor into what we're talking about with our nervous systems?
Okay, so I would appreciate any input you have in this, because this would be strictly my take on how I became so empathic. Because as I said earlier, I trusted my body signals. I trusted what I saw and felt. I didn't trust what came out of their mouths, because I learned real early that that wasn't congruent. There was no authenticity there. There was no trust there. So I had to learn to trust my nervous system and its signals on how to be with somebody. And we learn really early too how to create a safer place with these people. Like, oh, be the perfect kid so they'll be nice, and do everything just so you'll be safe in their environment. But we not only are empathic because we can sense their emotional energy. That's that feeling state, that co-regulation energy stuff. But we also have this highly tuned nervous system that was tuned to survival And when we are tuned to survival, everything is ramped up, like our senses. Some of them are like our ears hear more predatory, deeper sounds. We shut out some of the other stuff, but we also shut out peripheral stuff so we can really focus and hone in. So our nervous systems, most of you probably know, I can pick up anything audio because my body's listening, right? It's listening to keep me safe. It's smelling to keep me safe. It's looking to keep me safe. And all those things are tuned highly, making us super sensitive. And when the body has been in this state of high anxiety, stress, trauma, then all the body's 20% of the neurons from the brain go down and say, oh, shut down the acid in that stomach because we're not safe. But all of our organs get real good at protecting ourselves and being in survival states, which makes them highly attuned, which I call sensitive.
Yep. It is part of our survival. Mirror neurons. We even have like
Yeah.
special neurons in our brains that mirror back to us like what someone else is experiencing. I do think it's all part of our survival mechanism, but I do think it can make it more difficult. And again, speaks to the importance of creating safe spaces, because if you are not able to be around people who they themselves feel safe, who are calm, you're constantly going to be, picking up on their agitation. I mean, our animals do the same thing. If you pay attention, your pets, your dog, your cat, they're going to respond to your energy, right? They're also highly sensitive as well. So yeah, how important it is to learn practices for all of us to create safety and to learn to regulate our nervous system, to build those pathways in the brain and in the body that allow us to experience calm. So can we talk a little bit about some of the practices and modalities that you've learned and that you practice that you have found most helpful in doing just that?
Well, I can talk about what I find helpful, but there's probably a page in my client notes, page and a half of resources, because it really has to be a resource for you that works for you, that makes you feel relaxed. You get in that Zen state. You might be reading, you might be, playing music or listening to music. I love yoga. I love meditation. I love being out in nature. I love walking. Those things I can be taken away into my zone. And you have to allow yourself to do it. You have to allow yourself to receive that. And I also practice receiving love from people that, growing up with childhood trauma, that wasn't safe to be that close to these people. So opening the heart a little, I play with animals. They're safer, right? And we open our hearts to feeling safe, and that vulnerability starts feeling doable. But anything that brings you a lot of pleasure, I do Epsom salt baths, and I play with how deeply can I relax? And I've been doing this, and I do it every day. I play every day with my nervous system, teaching it to get deeper, relaxed, letting go deeply. When I'm in the gym, I lay on the bench and I just see, how limp can you go? How much can you let go of? This is training the nervous system to let go and to build the parasympathetic pathway. The same with when I'm in the Epsom salt bath. Can I float? Can I let go? Can I make myself deeply heavy? And I practice this stuff all the time to build the neurons and the capacity of my nervous system to be resilient and capable to handle a stress that comes in, and then self-regulate, go right back to being okay, which is, it's a practice. And so those are the things that I enjoy doing. And my feral cats, they come to me because they love me and they think I'm a safe person, and I am, even though I've trapped them and had them neutered. But animals I just love because they're so safe, and I feel warm and fuzzy around animals, and they're wonderful nervous system regulators. and friends.
Yes, agreed. So speaking of some of these modalities, now there is within yoga, there is a certain kind of yoga they call trauma-based yoga that I think a lot of people aren't as familiar with. Can you talk a little bit about what that is and what that does?
So the trauma-based yoga, and actually I have the book that I was teaching from David Emerson's work. In Western cultures, we've kind of thought of yoga as an exercise, but it's really an 8-limb practice. And it's really about connecting all the body, like we've been talking about, being healthy and strong, mind, body, spirit, breath, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. In trauma based yoga, the goal is that you start noticing your body. And so, and we never invite you to do anything that doesn't feel right. Because when we're building safety, and all of us need to have a safe container inside, we need to know we're in control. We're not doing what somebody else tells us to do. In regular yoga, you're guided by a teacher. In trauma based yoga, you're guided by the impulses of your autonomic nervous system. So I may say, let's sit down here and spread our legs. How does that feel? Do you like that? Do you want to try that? And then maybe see if you moved a little. Does that feel right? If there's impulses, so that the body is inspiring them to move, not somebody else. No one's forcing them to do anything, which is trauma, right? And they're being taught to listen and feel the body. What does that stretch? What if you were to stretch and bring your body down? How does that feel in your body? What are you noticing? This starts to build the capacity to feel, the neurons to feel, and to start noticing your body. And so really trauma-based yoga is very simplistic in its abilities as far as athletic. We're not doing anything that ever pushes the body into overwhelm or hurt or pain. We invite, because when we're in trauma's mode, we don't feel as deeply. And so we've learned to disconnect from the body and we don't feel it. So in trauma based yoga, we want to connect that back. So we want to go really slowly because the nervous system likes to go slow. And we want to make a stretch real slow. So, like, when do you just start to feel sensation? And maybe back off. Now, what do you notice? Oh, it's backed off. It feels good. And when slowly, sometimes we push ourselves in regular yoga classes, and you don't want to do that. You want to listen to the body, invite the body to tell you how I'm feeling. So when it's giving you strong sensation but not pain, that's okay. But you never want to get into pain either, because now your body's telling you, back off, you're hurting me, I don't like this. Because we actually are building a connection between mind and body, which we've disconnected from. And for us to be wholly balanced and healthy, we need that connection to come back. So we're building the trust with our body, that the body knows you're going to take care of me, you're not going to let me get hurt. And you start to learn to love its messages of, I'm going to keep you safe if you listen. I tell you when you're anxious because we're not safe, but you've been avoiding me and not listening. So you need to listen to me, body says, and I will listen to you. And in that kind of yoga, we also build that beautiful relationship where each can trust the other. I often will start yoga and say, what do you need from me today? I'm going to thoroughly listen to you when you tell me if I'm going too fast or hard or whatever. I'm going to listen to you. And my body now trusts that I'm going to take care of it and I'm going to listen.
Mm-hmm. Love it. Now, somatic experiencing is another modality that you're trained in. And I think there's some similarities with what you just described. I'm no SE expert, but from a little bit I know, I think we're doing a similar thing there also, right? Can you tell us more about that?
Yes. So in this somatic experiencing modality, it uses the polyvagal theory that trauma is a biological energy in the body. And so with that, we start to practice feeling, which is why I invited everyone just check in, because we need to check in with ourselves to feel. If we've done it regularly, we just know how to feel, and we go through life feeling because we built it. But when we didn't grow up with it, we have to teach it. So with somatic work, so many are so deeply cut off from themselves, and their health and their mental states are in such disarray because we can't, it's not safe for me to connect with my body. It's too uncomfortable, or it hurts, or it's we're just not, we're too vulnerable. And most of us have this pain inside that we're trying to avoid. And so with somatic work, at least the way I do it, we invite people to feel, but we start with feeling good stuff. And we start building the ventral vagal pathway with feeling good, like meditating and getting calm and teaching calm. And so that I'm not just feeling uncomfortable all the time, I'm also starting to feel some goodness. I'm starting to feel better. And as we train, teach the body or nervous system that there is another place to live where it's relaxed and calm, usually that's a little battle, because no, calm is not safe. Letting go is not safe. Safe is fighting and being prepared. So we have to do this dance with our body, and to train it so that, guess what? It is safe to be calm, and we can learn it if we practice it. And so in somatic work, there's the building of the relationship, because if I'm not a safe person to you, you will never let go of what's holding you back from healing, because you need to be able to be at your authentic state, your wounded self. And we put up all these little personas and adaptive behaviors so we don't have to be our true self, because we're too wounded and we're scared and we don't want to hurt anymore. And so we can't get to the deeper wounds until we start playing with the more external stuff. I invite people, and this is all on my YouTube channel, people, free stuff on my channel, on practicing orienting and feeling safe, practicing letting go of something that's bothering you, practicing meditating and connecting with your body, practicing just different stuff, because we get in the nervous system learns, it gets in the groove. It's built up this nervous system pathway. That's what it knows. That's what it feels safe in. And it doesn't want to change, which is why most of us don't go get help until devastation has happened, despair has happened. I don't know how to get out of this because I've been in this route, right? Which is why my partner and I created Making Friends with Forgiveness, the art of letting go, because it's all basic nervous system, building up the basic foundation, teaching you to let go, teaching you to love yourself with kindness and compassion. And from that state, you forgive yourself and you go on and make relationships that are healthy and natural and feel safe and feel productive and fulfilling for you, instead of the unhealthy stuff we've been going to.
I think that's so important. The whole aspect of forgiveness as part of recovering from trauma, because you not only is there perhaps like a forgiveness that needs to happen if it was a relational trauma that involved someone else, but what you just said, like the forgiveness of self, because when we're still in judgment of ourselves and when we're angry with ourselves, or like, why did I let that happen? Or now, the limiting beliefs that come from trauma, like, oh, I'm broken, I'm damaged goods, I'm unlovable, who would want to be with someone like me, that those types of ways of thinking, that's going to keep triggering the nervous system, right, over and over
Oh,
again.
yeah.
And so then you're still dysregulated and in this agitated state because you haven't yet forgiven yourself or others that were involved in the experiences. And we did a whole podcast episode on this, so I won't get into too much detail. But
Oh,
forgiveness is not about the other person saying what they did was okay. The way I look at forgiveness is it's the gift you give yourself of setting yourself free
Yeah.
from
That's
the
what we teach.
shackles of the past that still haunt you.
Yeah. And the forgiveness, as we know, is letting go. You have to let go of a perceived betrayal or a real betrayal or a pain that you're holding in a survival state. So again, we're building that basic neurological foundation of parasympathetic, ventral vagal, so that we can learn to let go, because we don't get taught this. And when we grow up in generational trauma, our nervous systems aren't built to let go. They're built to fight.
Yeah. Or run
Yeah.
away or escape, right? I work a lot with addiction. So of course there's
Yeah.
a huge overlap with, as you do, I think you do as well, right? There's a huge overlap with addiction, because so many people who develop addictive behaviors are trying to essentially self-medicate a dysregulated nervous system.
Yeah. Dr. Gabor Mate says that every addict has childhood trauma. And I knew that intuitively. And when I first heard him say that, I was like, yes,
Yeah.
yay.
It's we're getting there. The field is starting to catch up a bit. So one kind of last piece here that I know you work with your clients with this, and I certainly do as well. It's a real focus of mine in my work, is to work also with empowerment, with shifting limiting beliefs, especially the ones, like I said before, that can come from having traumatic experiences. It's almost like the mental is kind of the last piece. It feels like sometimes, like you've worked with your body, you've worked with your nervous system, and you've worked with the emotions, but then you also do have to work with limiting beliefs, right? Fears that, you have. I don't feel safe. It's not okay to trust people. Like how do you work with that piece?
And I see things a little differently and work a little differently. I see that a lot of the limiting beliefs came from a state of having to protect ourselves and or the experiences that happened to us. So we didn't get this sense that I'm enough just because I live here, and I am the art of perfection. So when the body starts to feel a little safer, the thoughts that go on are a little different. And when we start to develop this relationship of connecting with ourselves, the thoughts are, oh, I start to like my body and my body. Why would anybody not? It's like we start to question the beliefs. But of course, we do need to do inner reflection. And we have a whole module on inner reflection and heart opening and sensing, because we need to open our heart to ourselves and reflect on, why do I think this? And probably because I felt this way. So it's really this like synergistic dance of body, mind, and spirit, and coming together to open up the idea of what's really happened to me, and how can I see this in a more kind way. And I think the ability to love ourselves opens up such an energetic pathway that we aren't going to think bad thoughts about ourselves. We aren't going to think we're worthless and not good enough, because we've started to build that relationship with ourselves that we just won't let anybody else treat us wrong either because of that. So it is a wonderful dance, but I always start with the body, because I really believe in its innate intelligence and its capacity to either make us sick or make us well.
Exactly. And we know too that if you don't address unresolved trauma, if you don't work with your constantly triggered nervous system, you're much more likely to develop health issues, mental health issues, everything.
Yeah, the ACEs score, the ACEs test, that's on my website too. It's like, they've known forever how important your experiences growing up affect your adulthood.
Yeah, exactly. This has been such a great conversation.
Yeah.
Sharon, if people want to find out more about you, about your work, where do they go?
Okay, so there's a couple places. I really want to invite everybody to go to my YouTube channel. It's Sharon Laflamme, and there's so many resources there. And I also teach. I have a whole bunch of stuff about trauma, and they're very short videos, like 2 to 5 minutes at the most, meditations and breathing and all kinds of tips and capacity building. And I have a new attachment series, which would give you an understanding about why am I the way I am. But my website, creatingserenitynow.com. And then there's our at-home online course that you do, self-paced, makingfriendswithforgiveness.com. And you can find us at those places and tools to support you, because I want you all to know that you have the capacity to heal and to love yourself. And that is your God-given gift. And I would want everyone to really have that hope and belief in them.
Thank you so much. Those are wonderful parting words. Thank you so much for your time and for your presence and the gift that you are. Thank you, audience, for tuning in. If you have found this information helpful, please do share it with others. Subscribe, like, review, rate, all the things that will help this podcast get out there in the hands of more people, because in this day and age of ongoing traumatization that's happening in our world, we all need to find ways to help ourselves to heal and to become resilient, because it's not an easy time on this planet right now. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sharon. We'll see you next time on Kaleidoscope of Possibilities.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of Kaleidoscope of Possibilities, Alternative Perspectives on Mental Health. This has been Dr. Adriana Popescu. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe and share with others. To find out more about me, my guests, and more, please visit my website at adrianapopescu.org. See you next time.